notice in Revelation 7 that God gave a command that the 4 angels were not to hurt the earth or the sea while the sealing work was going on. So, brothers and sisters, even though this happened before 1844 and before this time, there's another application that happens especially now. And that we talk about this Islamic power. Notice in Revelation 7, before I make an application, look at Revelation 7. In Revelation 7, we see the same language used by God saying that he is going to hold back strife, even the strife between terrorism of America, terrorism of the Western world, terrorism against all these powers, this hatred and among nations, all this, even the Islamic power is being restrained, and even at the time when God is sealing his people in the last days. Just as it was then, it has an even great application among the time that we're living in. In Revelation 7, it says this. Revelation 7 and verse 1, it says, and after these things I saw 4 angels, parallel prophecy, standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the 4 winds or the wind should not blow upon the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any. Verse 2, and I saw another angel ascend out of the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud cry or voice to the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their. In the trumpets, we see God using earthly powers to do this work of destruction. And now we see the angels being restrained or from allowing these powers to do their work. The trumpets, we see the earthly powers and what they're doing. And now in this chapter, we're seeing that God has heavenly intelligence holding back these earthly powers. So what? So that the work of God can go on. So those that have the seal of God in their forehead would not be hindered in their work. But brothers and sisters, remember, when we talk about putting these texts together, this happened a long time ago. A long time ago. The 15th century. This happened a long time ago. Even all the way down to around the 17th. This happened a long time ago. But brothers and sisters, there's an application even for this time. Because all these things led up, and all these powers were leading up to the destruction of Babylon. The first 4 trumps were the destruction of Western Rome, or the Rome of the seas, or pagan Rome, and terrorism led the way for the papacy to come up. And the Islamic power came up, and they were an agency through which the papal power came down. You still with me? Yeah. Terrorism to those first 4 founded tribes caused the pagan Rome to fall. The Roman seas fell because of terrorism and many of the social issues that we see even happening today. And we see that this power in Revelation chapter 9, this power came up and they came to spiritual Babylon. They came to the papacy and they attacked the papacy. And the Crusades started, and there was a holy war on both sides. The papacy had a holy war and they had a jihad. And it was going on and on and on. There was much bloodshed, and this was happening because God was judging Jezebel. He was judging the papacy. He was doing a work, and this power was a great power that God allowed to come up to scourge the papacy. And as they were scourging the papacy and causing the papacy to have all kind of problems, guess who were preaching the gospel? God's true people. It made the Inquisition die down a little bit. It took the Reformation, all the dark. It took that because they were distracted by Islam. So God's people weren't completely wiped out. And right now, God is doing the same thing. All this is happening right now is so that God's sleeping people might wake up and have a chance to give this message to the world. It's a rehearsing of these things. Now remember, if terrorism led to the civil Babylon or pagan Babylon to fall, so the papacy can come up, and we see America now having all this problem with terrorism. And we're trying to fight in Iraq and Afghanistan at the same time. And now we want to talk about going into Iran. A 3-front war? Whoever won one of those? And we want to now go into Libya. And we want to go here. We want to go, brothers and sisters, what does all that mean? As terrorism is causing our economy to go down, 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 and all the social ills to go, what does that mean? What does that mean? Is all these prophecies fulfilling themselves? And just like all this caused that power to go down and the papacy to come up, guess what we see happening again? We see the very same where America is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and is making way for the papacy to come back up. But remember, this power, Islam, was moving and attacking and doing various things that caused the papacy to be weakened. What caused the papacy to come down? Protestantism. The beast that sent out of the bottomless pit, which was the age of reason, the French Revolution, all the teaching that came from there, attacked the papacy. Out of the French Revolution came communism and came socialism. The communism went to the east, took over China, took over Russia. You follow me? Took out Southeast Asia, Vietnam. All these things, North Korea, all these places were taken over by communism. And the atheism and the social revolution and the licentiousness went to the east. Sorry, it went to the west. I beg your pardon. Went to the west. All the licentiousness and the aspects of the godless rebellion went to the west. The Beatles, the big invasion, all the cultural revolution went to the west, but the same power. So Protestantism was in the world, and it was keeping the papacy from having its full. The Protestant Reformation did much to destroy the papacy. The age of reason, all these things were working also trying to take over governments, and they also put their stamp down and kept the papacy at bay. And then Islam was also working so that they could not return to full power. Brothers and sisters, what's happened to Protestantism? Protestantism has been, especially through the work of the Jesuits, great controversy, the work of the Jesuits to undo all that Protestantism has done. And now we see that Protestantism is actually working for the principle of the papacy rather than against it. The age of reason, the French Revolution, what's happened to that? Well, brothers and sisters, we see that right now there's a war on rebellion. There's a war on sin and licentiousness. There's a war in the government against abortion and war against homosexuality. And there's a Christian right and there's a liberal left, and they're warring and they're getting ready to pass laws to try and legislate morality so that these things can be put out so the papacy can have some strength. And even when you look at the East, no one ever thought that Poland would fall. No one ever thought that Russia would fall and would give way against communism. But did it fall? Yes. And China almost fell in the late 80s. China almost fell. And after the fall of China, with the Tiananmen Square thing, guess what they did? We won't believe it. Not only did they put the young people in jail, guess who else they put in jail? Every Roman Catholic leader. Why did they put them in jail? Why have they been in jail for the longest time? And why has even America been saying there's human rights violations by how they've been treating and torturing them? Why are all these Catholics, even Catholic priests, why were they put in jail? Subversion and trying to overthrow the government. That's what they say. We say, oh no, they couldn't have. Catholic priests had something to do with the overthrow of China? Oh, that's ridiculous. Those Jesuits had nothing to do. Those Jesuits teaching the universities, they had nothing to do with that. This youth movement that started and almost overthrew China in 1989. At the same time, Poland fell with a youth movement and through the labor unions and Lech Walesa, and the Pope of Rome, who was also Polish, was instrumental in that fall and the fall of all the Eastern Bloc countries. Youth movement. And now, 2011, what's happening in Egypt? Youth movement. What happened in Iran almost a little bit ago? What happened in Iran? Youth movement. The work of the Jesuits. The work of them in educational institutions. Because these Islamic countries, they say, we don't want the West, but we took their education. They took that education, they took the education of the West and took the educational style, and the Jesuits came in and started to teach in their universities and started to foment rebellion. And Iran almost fell, and it's tightened down. And Egypt has fallen, it's gone. Libya is on the way down. All these countries and all these, why all these Islamic countries have to fall? Because the power that came up to keep the papacy from strengthening and keep it from going and brought it down, that must go down for the papacy to come up. And the Protestant power that came up, even America, must go down for the papacy to come up. And also China must fall, brothers and sisters.